The best golfer in the world doesn't even know the point of going after the wins. Scottie Scheffler is the world's best golfer, and in a press conference for the British Open, he openly started talking about, like, look, what's the point of all this? And the reporters loved it, and I loved it because he went under the surface. He skipped all the superficial cliches that an athlete normally gives in a press conference, and he started talking about matters of psychology and matters of the heart and soul and what's really going to fulfill a person. And so he dove into this topic that few athletes and entertainers or famous people in general ever give us a glimpse into, and that is this idea that, like, success and all the things they achieve and all the headlines that they get to be in, it doesn't really do what they think it's going to do, and therefore what we think it would do if we were famous as well. Let's watch a quick clip of the press conference.
Because what's the point? This is not a fulfilling life. It's fulfilling from the sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of, like, the deepest, places of your heart. If I win, it's going to be awesome for about 2 minutes.
So that clip right there, he just talked about really the main struggle that we all have. Anytime I, as a therapist, am dealing with a client that's has some sort of issue like anxiety, depression, whatever, trauma, I'm ultimately looking for what's their source of fulfillment. And his quote of "this is not a fulfilling life," is fulfilling from a sense of accomplishment, but it's not fulfilling from a sense of the deepest places of your heart. Boom, that's the root. That's right there. That's the root. I mean, in my own story, I used to chase after the stuff that I thought was going to make me happy, I thought was going to fulfill me. And we all have this sentence in our head. It's that once I get this, then I'll be happy. Everybody has whatever their version of this is. Movies have been made about it. Books have been written about it. We all have this place in our heart like, okay, I want to be happy. I want to be fulfilled. And this is the thing that I'm sure that's going to do it for me. Professional athletes, they think, all right, well, I got to win the Super Bowl, win the major, whatever it is in their sport. But guys like Scheffler, they've reached that mountaintop, and he's won so many majors, and he is literally considered the best golfer in the world. And he's sitting here openly, honestly telling us, like, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, and it didn't fulfill me like I thought it would. It's like, yeah, it's cool to have an achievement and succeed, but then 2 minutes later, I'm just back to feeling normal again. A couple psychological things are going on here. One is called hedonic adaptation. It's a real fun, nerdy term. The idea is that, like, yeah, we can achieve something or experience something that brings us up so high. We get that dopamine release and the adrenaline rush. And then a few minutes later, a few hours later, we're like, okay, back to normal. It's a drug. We keep thinking, like, if I could just get there again, if I could hear that applause again or get that praise again, like, then I'll feel like I want to feel. But inevitably, we keep coming right back down to our baseline level. And so we find ourselves in this loop. And a lot of these entertainers, like I've seen singers interviewed, and they say there's no high like that high where the crowd is singing along with your song and screaming your name. And then you get off the stage and you go back home and you got, like, a family to deal with and a dog that's crapped the floor, and, like, I'm just a normal person again. So we keep getting drawn into this moment that we think is going to last forever and fulfill us, but really it just doesn't do it. Impact bias is another psychological term, is that we think that getting something is going to make this huge impact on us. Like, if you dream of getting a brand new car and this is your dream car, you think that once you get that car, it's going to have this massive impact on your happiness and you're going to be just overjoyed and on cloud nine. And you probably do feel that way for a day, two, maybe a week or so. And then that car kind of isn't quite so exciting. And you quickly come right back down to where you were, kind of that baseline. Your body adapts back to a baseline. So we have this bias in our head of, like, this thing or this achievement is going to impact me in such a great way. And then the heartbreak is we get it and it doesn't. So then a lot of people turn to despair and, like, where do we turn next? Also, just so you know, impact bias works the other way in a negative sense. We think that something negative that might happen is going to just totally wreck us and totally destroy us. So we work everything we can to avoid this thing and keep it from happening. This could be a breakup. This could be getting fired. This could be an awkward conversation, whatever. There's something in us that thinks the impact of that is just going to be so negative, and it is painful, but maybe it's a level 3 pain rather than like a level 10 pain. So we can remind our brains like, look, yeah, this thing probably is going to be either pretty good or pretty bad, but it's going to be over and we're going to get through it, whether it's negative or positive. I got to figure out what's really my source of stability and fulfillment. Scheffler is not the only one that's talked about this topic publicly. Tom Brady talked about it in a 60 Minutes interview a few years ago. He said, literally, why do I have Super Bowl rings and I still think there's something greater out there for me? And then he said, is this really all there is? And it's this expression on his face. I remember the interviews. He looks confused. It's like, wait, I thought that all this winning and all this glory was going to like be the end all be all, and it's really not. So that was one athlete. And then Michael Phelps, I mean, most decorated Olympian ever, amazing swimmer. He says, I was just a swimmer. Talking about like his identity. That's all I was. I was just a swimmer. And then when that ended, I didn't know who I was. So your homework here is to take these athletes and then turn it into your life. So I think a lot like, what am I building my identity on? Because there's really 3 big needs that we all have to have. And one of them is identity. We got to know who we are. We want to know that we're a somebody, that we're significant, that we matter. And if you're an athlete, it's easy to think, well, that's all that I am. If you're an investment broker, it's easy to think that's all that you are. Even as a therapist, I get kind of this high, this addiction to helping people, and it can be easy to think, well, I am a therapist, like that's who I am at my core. It's not who I am. That's what I do. And any of these positions, they're great positions, whether you're an athlete or a banker or a therapist or anything. They're all fantastic, but they can't be your actual source of identity. So think about, what is your source of identity? Because number one, if it can be taken away from you, it's eventually going to crumble. If it's your job, you're eventually going to have to retire, or you might even get laid off. Eventually that identity, as whatever your work is, that's not going to work as your true identity. Number 2 is if it's not something that costs you something, if it's not something that makes you sacrifice, it's an identity that's ultimately going to collapse as well. So identity is the first part of the homework for you. I want you to think about, what are you trying to build your identity on? And then 2, what is your purpose? In that same idea of what are you sacrificing for? We're built for a purpose. We're built to actually have an impact on the world around us, on the people around us. What you decide your purpose is, that's up to you. And that can be a helpful one-on-one conversation with people, but you were born for a purpose and on purpose. You're not just here to live for yourself. You and I are too small to be living for ourselves. It's eventually going to collapse and we're going to be left empty. So think about like, what's your purpose? What kind of things do you want to make a difference in? What kind of situations do you feel like you can improve, or what kind of people do you connect well with and boost their day just a little bit? Purpose doesn't have to be some massive thing every day. And then finally, the thing we need, first is identity, next is purpose, and then finally we need belonging. We got to know that we actually have a group of people that love us, that accept us, that are going to push us to be even better. But we know this is my tribe. And we can get that, again, through something like golf, like Scheffler's talking about. He belongs on that PGA Tour, but he also has found out that that's not enough. And again, if it can be taken away from you, it can't be your main source of belonging. So what are those 3 things for you? What are you trying to build your identity on? What are you trying to find your purpose in? And what are you trying to find? Where are you trying to find your belonging? Because if any of those sources that you're clinging to, that you think this is going to be it for me, if any of those things can be taken away, if they're out of your control, eventually it's going to collapse. So what Scottie decided is that he's going to put his identity, his purpose, and his belonging, he's going to find those in his faith. And here's a quote that pretty much sums it up. He says, "My victory was secure on the cross. It doesn't matter if I win this tournament or lose this tournament. My identity is secure forever. And for him, that's freed him up to just go out there and compete and not put pressure on himself because he already knows who he is. He already knows why he belongs. He already has a purpose. And he knows golf is going to help him secure that purpose and achieve that purpose. But it's not his whole foundation that he's putting all of his weight onto. He also, in this press conference, he talked about his family being a higher priority than golf. That's part of his identity as well. I think at one point in the conference, he even says, if the day that golf starts to weaken my relationship with my wife or with my son, that's the last day I ever play golf. So Scottie's one of those guys, he's got his questions answered in a way that, yeah, he knows his identity, his purpose, and his belonging, and those sources are not those temporary sources that could be taken from him. So that's your next step. What is that for you? Because as you start to wrestle with this stuff, you're going to start to gain fulfillment and some confidence, knowing that you're pushing through some discomfort, because this is easy to just run from and distract ourselves from. And give yourself some grace as you go through this process as well, because these are not answers that you're going to automatically be able to just spit out with 10 seconds of thought. These are questions that you should wrestle with in your own mind and your own heart, and then also ask other people, like, hey, this is going to maybe sound a little weird, but like, I've been thinking about identity and purpose and this kind of stuff. Like, y'all ever thought about that? What are you building that on? And just see what other people say. But at the end of the day, nobody else gets to decide this but you.